Hello, thanks for tuning in to Engage Every Student, Flipboard in the Classroom. I'm Mike McCue, I'm the co-founder and CEO of Flipboard. And I'm really happy to get a chance to answer some of your questions today. And so let's get started. First question is, how did you get the idea for Flipboard? Well, I've always believed in the power of great content, great stories, great narratives, to move the world forward. I can remember times, and I'm sure you can too, when you read something that transformed how you thought about the world. Maybe it was how you thought about being an educator. Maybe it was how you thought about your career or your students. Maybe it's how you thought about what you wanted to be when you grew up, when you were younger. Content shapes who we are and how we see the world. And increasingly, that content is being drowned out in a sea of other less important, less interesting, less insightful content, selfies and Snapchat and updates on Facebook and small little tweets on Twitter. And I was starting to get concerned about that. I also have been concerned about how content looks and how it's presented. I remember one time before Flipboard, I was on a plane on a trip with my family, and I really wanted to read a magazine on the flight. Before any flight, I always buy a big stack of magazines. And I read this really great article in National Geographic. And I remember really enjoying the article, read it end to end, looked at all the inset maps, looked at all the beautiful photographs, and read the captions, and really learned a lot about what the topic of the article was. I remember thinking to myself, I had seen that very same article on the web, but I never really read it. I never spent any time with it. And I wondered why that was. Why did I enjoy it so much in print, but on web, I kind of just glanced over it. When we landed, I went to the web and I looked at that article. I found it on the web. And it was really a shadow of itself online. It didn't have all those inset maps. It didn't have all the beauty that comes with print. You had to click across multiple pages to read it. There were ads everywhere as you read it. And I started to realize that there was, as content moved from print to digital, that the quality of the content was decreasing. So not only was this really important content being drowned out by all of this emerging social media, but it also was looking worse and worse. And as you move that content to a mobile device, you have even less screen real estate. And then as a result, it's even harder for that content to look as good as it once did in print. So started to think about what could we do about this? I had previously worked at Netscape, the first internet browser, and had worked with a lot of media companies to bring their content onto the internet, and started to realize that maybe there was an opportunity to take all of that to a new level, especially with the advent of touch screens, large screens where you could really just touch the content like you would in print. Perhaps we could build something that felt like a digital magazine, and maybe that magazine could actually be powered by social media instead of overwhelmed by it. And so the ideas for Flipboard began to take shape. Those ideas, beautiful print-like presentation, using the power of social media to actually almost help act as a filter so that you found great content, and bring those things together into your own personalized magazine. That really became the foundation for Flipboard. And ever since, we have been building a product that is really designed to give people really meaningful, high-quality content around the things that they're most interested in. That could be what's going on in Russia right now. It might be they're really into snowboarding. It might be what is happening with the Pope and his visit to the US. It could be any of these things. And in fact, many people have more than one interest. And so what we want to allow Flipboard to do is to be that single place you go for all of the things that you're most interested in. Find really high quality content from the world's best publishers And what I mean by that is not just the New York Times, but also a really thoughtful blog or a white paper that somebody wrote, all together in this one beautiful magazine-like experience. And then further, we want to allow people to add their perspective to all this content. So if they have a particular perspective about what's going on in Russia, they can curate content from around Flipboard and around the web, package that together into a magazine that then they can share publicly or privately with other people. And those people can then see those articles and discover what's happening in Russia and start to gain a new perspective. So that's the vision for Flipboard. And it's something that we've been working on now for about 5 years, and we're really just getting started. So we're incredibly excited to get a chance to work with you, the education community, to really learn about how best we can serve you and how Flipboard can evolve as a result. So our next question. With so many companies trying to be the next big thing in education, what sets Flipboard apart? Well, you know, Flipboard really is designed around the concept that content educates. Great stories help provide perspective, and you learn about what's happening in the world as a result of really great content. And so Flipboard as a platform, really its probably biggest purpose is to bring high quality, meaningful content to its natural audience and then educate that audience so that those people who read it or view it can learn and get a new perspective. That is incredibly important. I think a big reason why the world runs into difficulty is when people are not educated about something. And so inherently, what journalists do and what Flipboard provides is the ability for important insights to get distributed to the people that are best able to do something about those insights. And that is education. So inherently, that's really what Flipboard is about. Now, this can happen for people who are in school right now or are already out in the world in their profession doing what they want to do. Maybe they're a political leader, maybe they're a parent, maybe they're a teacher. But that concept of education is actually part of our DNA. I think this is also particularly timely and relevant right now because what you see kids today having to deal with is not just watching TV like when I was a kid. Now you have an unbelievable amount of distraction coming from everything you can imagine. And we think that instead of just sending selfies to your friends, kids want to be able to express their interests to other kids. And I think that that's actually a really important thing that Flipboard can provide. This idea that, I think kids are a lot more sophisticated than people sometimes think they are. I think that kids really want to think differently. They want to have unique perspectives and unique insights about important topics, and not just send selfies. So that's actually something that I really am excited to be able to do with Flipboard, is give kids that additional capability for them to express themselves. Okay, let's check out another question here. In what ways does Flipboard reach out to underprivileged student populations? What do we do about students who do not have easy access to technology or computers? That's a great question. I think that almost every student now actually does have a smartphone. The nice thing about smartphones is that it's really brought computing to the masses. And now with a smartphone, you can use Flipboard. Flipboard is designed to work on pretty much any platform. Works on the web, works on Android phones, iOS phones, and Windows phones. So what that means is that a teacher can package up content for kids, which they can then read on their phone. And that's actually pretty cool, because I think that a student, when they're have some downtime at home, they can more naturally read some of the content that their teacher has packaged up for them in a magazine. And I think that if you do a good job at the curation and make that magazine interesting, it's actually usually pretty interesting content to read, and you're just going to trigger the interest of kids and trigger their thoughts and imagination. So it is I think smartphones can really help. You can also, of course, project an iPad or a laptop in the classroom as well, and you can look at a magazine on the web or just kind of help flip through the articles in a classroom. For students who don't even have a smartphone, they can still benefit from that. So that's one thing that I'm really excited about with Flipboard, is it really works on kind of the platform that pretty much everyone has access to today. The other thing is we're more than happy to have our team come and help you, particularly in areas that do have underprivileged kids. Our team is incredibly motivated and excited to help kids get more insight and knowledge into things that are happening in the world and interests that they have. So please feel free to reach out to us, and maybe we can help you out in your classroom. Okay, another question. Will there be a G-rated version of Flipboard so that schools will feel more comfortable using the website and the app? If not, what's the reasoning behind it? That's a great question, and we have always wanted to build a G-rated version of Flipboard. I have 4 kids, and I would love it if when they used Flipboard, they only saw some content and not other content. Now, what I've done to address that is I actually curate magazines for my kids, and they can go in and read those magazines and kind of stay within that environment. And that works pretty well. Now, it is true that on Flipboard effectively is a web browser. So you can point Flipboard at practically anything, and some of that content might not be appropriate for certain ages. We've thought about ways to try to create kind of a contained environment for certain age groups. We haven't been able to do that yet, though, because it's actually quite challenging. There's almost always going to be some escape path, and we don't want to necessarily say this is completely safe for a particular age group, because invariably there's going to be some PG content that could filter into a G-rated content stream. But again, the key way to handle this, while we're still investigating how to do this, will be, is there a way, will be to curate your own magazine and then use that magazine as the main thing that your students are looking at. Let's see, next question. Most companies offer a free version of their service for a while and then begin charging. How will Flipboard be different? Well, actually, that's something that you won't have to worry about with Flipboard. Flipboard will always be free. We have built a really good business based on high-quality advertising, working in conjunction with our publishing partners. What we do is we enable our publishers to sell advertising against their content, have that advertising be higher quality, not those annoying pop-up ads, and then we rev share with those publishers. Those ads can sell for more money and as a result subsidize the content. So that's actually going to be a pretty good business, and we don't need to charge users to use Flipboard as a result. And that is something that we're very committed to. You won't have to worry about us deciding to change that model and all of a sudden start charging everybody to use the product. It will always be free. Okay, and finally, one more question here. What is your vision for education, personally or as a co-founder of Flipboard? Well, I think education is incredibly important. As a founder, I actually never got a chance to go to college myself. I actually was self-taught in computers and programming, self-taught in learning how to build a company, made a lot of mistakes along the way. But the key thing for me was always access to content, access to information. I read a lot of books, I read a lot of magazines, I read a lot of newspapers to really educate myself on how I could be an entrepreneur and how I could be an engineer. I remember when I was a kid, I used to get a magazine called 99er Magazine. I was in high school, in 10th grade, and this magazine would come every month, and in the magazine there was always code for games or other types of apps that you could copy into your computer, and you could learn how to program. and learn how to make apps. And every month I would copy a bunch of the different apps that had been publicized in this magazine, and got to the point where I was actually able to take one of these apps that I wrote from scratch and submit it to 99er magazine and have them publish it. It was really a highlight of my time at high school. And that was actually all because I had access to this content. And I think that students today can be anything they want to be. They have the ability now, because of technology, to have an outsized influence in the world. But to do that, they need to form a point of view. They need to gain a sense of insight into the things that they care about and they're passionate about. And then learn how to leverage technology, leverage social media, leverage things like Flipboard to get that perspective across to other people in whatever it is that they're doing. And so I think education and Flipboard, again, really go perfectly together. Education is built into the DNA of what Flipboard is all about. Flipboard is really just a container for knowledge about interests. And that's something that will continue to fuel our vision for what we're building as a platform going forward. We want to create a way for kids who are really interested in the idea of social media to have an outlet to have great insights come from social media and then share their insights with other people through social media, and not just think of social media as just a place to hang out and just have some fun. So Flipboard for us is a great platform, something that we want to develop in partnership with educators, with students, and other influencers around the world to be something that really can educate the world, bring great content to people so that they can have these insights and move the world forward. So that's our vision for Flipboard. Thank you for your questions, and I hope you have a great day today talking with my team. Thank you very much.